if you could tell people, people that already have ISAs right now, one thing they could do or where they should start, how would you answer that question?
So if you're a real estate team, they're not part of the team, or sometimes we even say family, then they're going to be an island of their own and left to their own wares. The second thing is to make sure that they understand. I've seen the change. When they understand that them getting paid is as important to me as it is to them, their attitude changes right away.
100%. I love that because, I think it's that statement of treating them like they're a member of your team, like they're right there with you. All right, folks, I got a good one for you today. We've got Wayne Upshaw, Power ISA client. He's out of Atlanta, Georgia. And he's here to tell us, talk to us about a really interesting topic, one that I'm very passionate about, which is building an ISA team for performance, building a high-performing ISA team with strong culture, right? So I think it's a topic that's overlooked. I think it's one of the key factors of success for a lot of folks that thrive with ISA teams. But I think it's an easy one to miss for a lot of folks. You might think, oh, I've only got one ISA. I don't need to focus on culture. I don't need to focus on team. I think I disagree. I'm pretty sure Wayne would disagree too. We're going to talk about that and what the outcomes you can achieve if you have a strong ISA team, strong culture, and kind of what that entails. So, and the results, the Wayne has gotten from that. So, Wayne, thank you so much for jumping in here today with me. Why don't you give people, a quick intro? Who's Wayne Upshaw? Tell us about your market and where your business is at right now.
So, I'm a real estate agent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm basically home officed out of the Cumming, Georgia location, but we deal with everything Atlanta and North Georgia. I am one of the top 50 agents in the area, and one of the top agents in my brokerage. So on that, on the ISAs and how and the things that they do for me, for sure. And we also deal we deal in all different kinds of real estate too. We list properties, obviously. We also help buyers, but we also do a lot of lease listings as well, which my ISAs help me with.
I got you. I love it. So describe your ISA team for us, right? You guys started with one, like where you at right now, and what kinds of leads are you focusing them on? What's a typical week or a day activity for an ISA team for you guys?
So to kind of begin, I come from a corporate background. I was a director and a manager of a large corporation. So I've had employees before. I've had people report to me, and so I know that culture and how you deal with people are everything. If you want them to do a hard work for you, you've got to bring them into your culture. You've got to have the culture where they'll feel like doing that. And so I started off with a single ISA, and he was pretty raw. And I come from a corporate background where a lot of corporations these days, they don't want people who are necessarily seasoned a lot of times because they want to teach them how they want it done. And so I'm very sometimes I'm very guilty of that. I want them to teach them how I want things done. It could be I may or may not be a minor control freak. You may or may not want to ask my wife about that. But so what I've discovered though is I was able to take that gentleman who was really willing to work hard, and the first thing I thought of is like, okay, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. He is on the West Coast, and so there's thousands of miles of difference between us, and there's hours of difference between us. So how am I going to get him to buy into my team and how we do things, and buy into in being almost an island on his own? So the first thing I thought about was, okay, he needs to be a part of what we're doing. He needs to understand our culture, the rest of my team and agents and everybody else who works with me, which is some of my family members as well. He needs to be brought in and say, look, you're going to be a part of this. You're going to be like a family to us. And we call ourselves sometimes the family. The guys that are here, we do some things together, not all the time, but we do some things together, and we incorporate them into that. When we have a weekly meeting on every Monday, they are a part of that meeting, and we all have goals, and I present them and I talk to them, and I started with the single agent. I told him, say, look, you're every bit as important as everybody else here. You're going to make me appointments, and it's part of the pipeline system. If you don't have appointments and you don't have leads or people that you can talk to, people aren't going to knock on your door to say, hey, can you list my house? And so these guys are really important. And if they're motivated, they're going to do such a better job. And I worked with him and taught him the scripts, and really he started understanding that he was going to be a part of this. And we talk every week, every Monday. We talk. My whole team is like, what's your goal for the week? And we look at those goals, and then on Friday we have a discussion and say, look, and a lot of times it's a person to person discussion. Your goal was this. How did you do? And if you didn't make it, what kept you from doing it? What can we do together to get you to that goal? Because when they do well, we do well, and that's it in a nutshell.
Simple as that. It's as simple as that, right?
Right. Rising tide lifts all boats. So if they, and as I started adding them on, I made sure that they were a cohesive group. And I'll tell you how well it worked. I started getting this lead system where I would feed them one by one. And on their own, they created their own little spreadsheet where they started putting them on there, and they would divide them against each other. I never told them to do it. I never had to tell them to do it. They did that on their own. And they work together, and they're miles from each other. They're not that close to each other. So they're working together because they feel like, and I'll tell you what happened. They were on one of the calls that you guys had, and they talked with other ISAs from working with different places, and they called me right after. I mean, the whole group of them called me and said, you have no idea how much we love working with you.
No, they saw a few horror stories, basically, right?
Right, right. And so when they said, when they were telling me about the stuff that some of the others were going through, it was like, I think it really teaches a lesson to where, how are you dealing with these people? Because put yourself in their position. And would you, we might be real estate agents, and no, we're not getting, depending on how your business is, we're not guaranteed any money. It doesn't matter if you got something under contract or not. So
Yeah.
you walk away, well, you're not guaranteed anything. But how would you feel if you did work for somebody and you were supposed to get paid on every Friday and that didn't come? So I put factors in place where they automatically get paid. And I'm a busy guy, so one of the things when I first got my ISA is that I identified is I made a mistake, and I said, okay, if I'm a busy guy, I'm gonna make this mistake, then I've got to make it automatic. I'm really big about setting procedures and processes. So I created a process to where these guys know they're going to get paid no matter what. The second thing that I thought was interesting is that they were saying that a lot of the ISAs didn't feel like their agents were following up on the leads because the bonus structure is important to these guys, and as it should be. And so if your guys aren't thinking you're following up on their leads, and their leads just go to this nameless, faceless site way that they don't know how that's going to go. My ISAs, I've developed a situation to where when they send us the leads, we put it in our CRM, and I have a way to do a hashtag in my CRM to identify that person sent that lead. Now, we develop relationships and develop our pipeline, and that pipeline may come to fruition in a few weeks. It may come to fruition in 6 months or even a couple of years. but they know that no matter what happens, that when that comes in, I'm be able to identify, and they know what we're doing with it. So my assistant always gives them a little feedback as well. If I'm not able to do it, she'll do it. So they know what's going on with that lead, and they know that when they make a call and they make a relationship, it matters, and that it matters not only to us, but it matters to them too, because hey, we come to this from an aspect of, and I really drive this home to my whole team. We're trying to help people. The money in real estate, if you're not trying to help people, I think you'll fail. And I teach a lot of classes, and I do what's called a fireside chat with brand new agents. And one of the first things I tell them is, if you're in this to just make money, you're going to fail. If you're in this to help people first, the money comes. And so I drove that home to them. And when I was able to take that and because I give that to them, my first reaction to them is, how can I help you be successful? How can I help you do this? What do you need from me? And that way they have passed that on to the people that they're calling. And in Atlanta, and I suspect in the Southeast, it's a little different than a lot of the rest of the United States. If you come here and you try to make a really hard sell, most of the time you're not going to be successful. We're a lot more laid back here. I wouldn't say life is slow. Atlanta's a major international city, but it's just not. We're just not the kind of people that will answer to that hard and fast paced sell. So we are more relational and relationship driven. I tell them how to, you know, get people comfortable with you, and one of the biggest things I'll pass on to the agents know how to reach people. I've been doing this already. If an agent knows how to size people up, to read them, to understand what their pain points are, if you pass that on to your ISA, it's going to help them tremendously. Once I was able to do those kind of things, they blew up. I mean, I was getting lead after lead after lead, appointments and things of that nature. And we started getting a really tough problem. I wasn't able. I didn't have enough time to go into one appointment to the other. So darn, that's a hard problem to have, right?
Oh no. What do we do? Too many appointments. Oh no, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So it's all because and I'll tell you what happened the last couple of weekends. Um, as life happens, and I'll tell you the truth too. So like I don't pay my ISAs hourly. I put them on a uh I put them on a what do you call it? Uh they they get a set fee every week. They get a set fee, which turns out to be the same price as you would do it
A full
hourly.
shift.
And they actually, yeah, and they actually appreciate that. But I also know, working that way for several years in my own in my own life, you got kids need to go to the doctor or whatever. Um, so when that happens, if it's just an hour or so, I don't worry about that. But what I've found is they feel so much of a part of things now, is that if they do miss an hour, or one of them last week, her internet went out the last hour of the day. She came back and worked a whole shift on Saturday, just because she wanted to get that extra out there. And they're trying to get their bonuses and things like that, but they they wouldn't do that if the culture wasn't right.
A hundred
And I
percent, 100%. There's a lot of trust there. It looks like you've put a lot of trust in the IC, and they've reciprocated with that attitude, right? That culture, that the way to approach things, which is it's very different, I think, than how most teams are run, right?
Yeah, it is. And hey, I've failed before, so I've learned over the years. But yeah, if people aren't valued, and they don't feel like they're working for a greater cause, then they're just going through the day. but if they feel like they're doing something bigger, a cause bigger than themselves, um, and they're a part of something, you know, you always have your people that, you know, aren't going to work out, but for the most part, you know, if people feel like they're doing something, you know, worthwhile and for something else, they're going to really work hard. And I'll tell you something else too, like one thing because I know a couple of other agents that have some people that do phone calls for them, and they say, well, that's just their stuff now. You know, that's their uh you know, their line they're supposed to learn and all that kind of stuff. Well, you have to remember is your business. If I was talking to an agent, I would tell them, you have to remember this is your business. You own this business. And whether you like, you know, whether you realize this or not, these guys are now part of your business. And it's in your best interest to make sure they're trained properly, that they have the right attitude, and that they understand what you're expecting from them. Because if you just put them out on an island, they don't understand what you're expecting from them, and they're just out there making calls on a script. And you know, I think we've all gotten that phone call from someone and go, "Wow, this guy's literally reading this off a piece of paper," instead of trying to
Yeah,
make a relationship. And
100%.
yeah, it, and it just it becomes it becomes robotic, and your guys are not going to be successful.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so, wait, I mean, there's so much to unpack here. There's a lot of really, really, really good suggestions here because it's one thing to say you should create a strong culture. You know, you want to build a culture, and you know, it's almost like a buzzword. I don't think that that term is useful for a lot of folks because people, when they talk about culture, they might think about, you know, slogans or parties or social events or, you know, on non-work activities. And I'm like, I think you're missing the point. The culture is what you do during work hours, not how you relax after work hours, right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. So if I understand you correctly, you've been able to build a really strong culture from what you've been describing. You know, bringing in, you know, talented people, raw skills. You're focusing on raw skills. You're not looking for people that, oh, I've done, you know, real estate in Atlanta, calling that. You're looking for people that have the skills, and you're teaching them the rest of the parts. So the talent, you're looking for talent, you're looking for those raw skills. How long have you been with the team? How many months has it been?
Uh, you mean like the ISAs?
Yeah, with the
Uh,
essays.
I've built it in the year. I started about this time last year.
Okay, so it's been a year, and from what you're describing, you still have regular check-ins to check in on what their goals are. Are they meeting those goals? And if they're not meeting those goals, how can you help them achieve them? So it's been a year, and you haven't lost that habit. This is how you build culture. This is how you build culture of performance. You're checking on performance. You know, it's part of what you do. So that might seem like a really, you know, saying it out loud means it seems very obvious, right? It is
Mhm.
not what typically happens, actually. It's unfortunately not what typically happens, but that's part of what your process is. Another big chunk you mentioned, and I can't, you know, overstate the importance of this. You make sure your people are paid on time, right? So oh, got my hand raising thing here on Zoom. So yeah, I am raising my hand, right? This is an important point to make. A lot of folks don't handle that well, right? A lot of agents will go, oh, you know, when the agents are in charge, not all of our clients are in charge of payroll, thank goodness. Some, but a lot of them are. They handle their own payroll, they manage their team. And oops, I forgot payroll. Oh, I'll do tomorrow. Oh, you know what? Oh, I'm out of town. I'll do it Monday, right? Oh, I forgot on Monday. Let me just do it Tuesday, and then we're good, right? We're good, right? We're good. And it is a really clear way to say doing something like that is a very clear way to say that the person's not important to you. Okay. I can't think of another way to describe it. That's not important. And you know, I don't know what else to say about that, right? In
Well,
some parts of the US, it'd be illegal to do that, right? You could get a fine for paying someone.
well,
Oops, I forgot to pay you, I'll pay you the next day.
and
You can't do that, right? So
I put it
I think
even
it's a
more
big
like this.
part of it.
I put it like this. I tell real estate agents all the time. And I tell some of my clients this all the time. I love real estate. I love what I do. But if they stop paying me, I'd have to go find something else to do tomorrow.
100%.
I got mouths to feed. My wife's gonna be really mad if I don't have enough money to pay the house payment.
Yeah, 100%. And it's all, I mean, it's silly that we have to say this as business owners, right? But if you have people, they depend on you, you got to pay them on time. And
Mhm.
complete and correct, right? On time
Right.
and correct. I think both. Complete. And I love, you kind of made a change in your process where you moved to more of a fixed fee system. That just makes things a lot easier to manage. I think your mileage will vary on some teams, whether that's you can do that or not. But it's the simplicity of it. So now it's
Yeah.
never late. You're always
Mhm.
correct and you're always on time. You found a way to implement that, right? But
Yeah.
paying someone the correct amount, paying someone on time,
Mhm.
it really should be table stakes. It should be the bare minimum. But some people don't do that, right? And it's a
Right.
great way to dynamite the trust you've built with someone, to dynamite the culture. And I'll think I'll stop there. But that is unfortunately more common than you would think. People
Yeah.
not taking the payment process seriously.
That's
There's
what I
no other way
was
to describe it.
that's what I was hearing, and that was the first thing that and on why some of the ISAs wouldn't work out with people is because they didn't understand that hey, everybody has, you do a fair job, you get fair wages. Now, also I'm going to piggyback that too, that I trust but verify. Okay. So as long as they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing, and there's, you got the screenio and all kinds of things to keep up with what they're doing. And I do monitor, I listen to their recording. So if I need to maybe make some adjustments and things like that, and they know I do it. We run scripts together and things like that almost every day. And
Wow.
but they know that when I'm doing that I'm doing it for the betterment of the team, not for to either call, like if I'm listening to a recording, I'm not doing it to call them out, to expose them for a mistake. Here's what I tell them, and this is very true. I I've been doing this more than 10 years and been really successful, but I don't know everything. If they have ideas, I ask them to bring it to the table. If you have ideas, you're experiencing something out there on a phone call, they're on the front lines. So why wouldn't I listen to them? It doesn't mean I might, make a decision one way or the other, but I'm going to listen to them. I want them to bring ideas to the table because they are talking to people. And when I'm in appointments and things like that, I'm not talking to nowhere near as many people as they are. So I better listen to what they're telling me about the feedback we're getting. So I bring that to them as well. But I also, let's refine the thing. Maybe there's a part of the script we can change that'll help me as well. Hey, let's collaborate together and be and lift each other up. And that's the way my approach is to them. They know I'm looking at everything. They know that, I am a trust but verify kind of guy. But we're also all on the same page, and we're all trying to learn. We're all trying to do the next, trying to do the same things and lift each other up.
And I think that's a really good way to go about it. And you're seeing the results of that, right?
Mhm.
You're of building, a really strong culture. So, we mentioned hiring people with that raw skill set, checking in daily, role play, weekly, checking in on their results and, what do they need from you? And if everything's going great, that's great. But if they need some help, you're there, being present, right? In
Mhm.
that role. You also mentioned, you were very intentional about teaching them how to approach the leads you have, right? Because you know your market really well, you understand what the best way to approach people in that area is, and you've been very intentional about teaching them not just a script. You didn't say the word script, right? You said it was higher level than that. You
Yeah,
explained
absolutely.
to them the area you're in. You explained to them the outcome you wanted, right? And you started from the
Mhm.
mindset that they needed to have. That is different than a script. Anyone can put a script in front of someone and rehearse it. But if they don't understand the mindset they need, if they don't understand the why, like why are we using, why are we saying things this way? Why do maybe your experience with solar panel sales in California doesn't carry over to this role? And I'll tell you why, right? Like going into that
Mhm.
level of detail and going to that higher level of mindset is also something you've kind of implemented, right? Something you've worked with them on to
Yeah.
get them, into the program, right?
Correct. So part of that mindset too is teaching them a little bit about the Atlanta, Georgia area. So if they're a different thousand miles, they may have never even visited Atlanta before. And I've lived here all my life. I know exactly how things work and how international we are. A lot of when I got my first ISA, he was very worried him about being able to relate to people from Atlanta because his um uh, people that were here. People, it's not like you think it is. And so I was able to enlighten him in the culture, and he relaxed a little bit. And when he started relaxing, he was able to be more himself. And I'll tell you, I say that you can get to be themselves because part of their skill set is a personality. If you're on the phone with someone, and I do this in my real estate, so I make people laugh. Okay. And it could be something as simple, and it takes me just a few seconds to get into there and say, look, I'm going to make this person laugh, and I can figure out a way to do it, even when they're not in a good mood. You pass that on, and you say, look, this is what I'm doing to get them off their guard. So when they answer the phone, I may say something silly like it's raining here in Atlanta as we film this. Um, it's and I would probably say something to the nature of, hey, if it keeps raining, hey, my neighbor may know it. I think he's starting to build a boat. And that most people when they're on the phone like that, it cracks them up a little bit and it relaxes them. I've taught them things like that to be relatable, to have a personality. That it may not be my personality, it's their personality. And I want them to utilize their personality to because everybody has something about their personality that's enduring. So what is that? Find your voice with that script, and then know, people know authenticity. And if you're not authentic, they'll know it and they'll ignore you. And so how do you
Yeah.
get authenticity is through the relationships and getting them to be comfortable enough that hey, look, we're all in this together. So be authentic, be yourself, and get on that, talk to them as you would talk to a friend. And that when they really get that and they grasp that, that's when they turn the corner and go, well, you know what? Wow, this works. And people aren't fussing at me nowhere near as much as they usually do. Because
Gotcha.
you get you know, you get jerks every once in a while, but um and I even taught them and they're utilizing some things like this. I it's this is more to me than just real estate. If you're not willing to help somebody, you're not going to be successful. And I know I've said that probably what 20 times on this call. But I had a guy one time call me back and absolutely ripped me up on a voicemail. And it was funny because I was in a populated area with great cell phone service, but it went to voicemail automatically for some reason. Now, I, my beliefs are, it was a God thing because if he'd have, and called me up on the phone and said some of the things he said on my voicemail, I might have responded back.
Maybe.
Hey, I'm a human being too, Um, but then I waited for a few minutes and I thought about it and I thought about it. I said, for this guy to take the time to find my phone number and call me with that, he's got more going on than he's got more issues than he has than the real estate thing. Then we
Yeah.
bothered him with the phone call, you know. And so I gave it a day or two and I called him back. I called him personally and I said, look, uh, a phone, this is not a sales call. I'm calling you directly from person to person. And I talked to him. I said, look, for you to take the time to find my phone number and to call me back like this, it tells me that there's something else going on. I said, are you okay?
Oh,
And
wow.
and so when I did that, all of a sudden he comes and says, well, I am having some struggles. And we started talking and things like that. And now we talk about once a month.
Wow. Holy. So you took one of your haters and you had an actual like human connection with them.
Mhm.
Holy cow, that's a first. That's a first, I have to tell you. Right? I've been doing this a long time. I don't think I've heard of anyone ever doing that. And they, and kudos to them. They showed a lot of vulnerability there too, right? They're
Yeah,
like, you know
yeah.
what? The way you approached it, the way you said it, probably sounded for real for them, sincere, right? Because someone can take that the wrong way, like, oh, I think you're struggling. Why you mean that? They can even get more mad. But you delivered it in a way that seemed sincere. They're like, you know what, you're right.
Well,
I agree with you.
it turns out he was going through a divorce and that
Ah,
a couple of attorneys had given their phone number out. So agents were calling anyway, and we weren't a part of that. And so, so I was able to discuss it. And they're not even selling their house. But when he does, who do you think he's going to come to? Because I was a human being to
100%.
him.
No, or someone he knows, like his friends, family, neighbor, and his ex, who knows, right? I mean, they're
Right.
gonna go, hey, this guy's great. This guy does, he's in it. He actually helped me out. He was in it. He saw me as a person. Saw me as a person, right?
Right.
Which can be hard to do, right? Especially in a situation like that, as emotionally charged as that, right?
Absolutely. And we can be so involved in and I'm preaching to the choir here. We can be so involved in trying to scale this person that we can skip that part. And I think we do it at our detriment sometimes. I mean, this video kind of went from ISAs to real estate agents. We got to make sure we're doing.
Got deep, right? Yeah, but Wayne, I think it's
We're
also
doing
a sign, right? I think someone where those things matter to you, right? Those things matter to you. That's the approach you take. That's a mindset you have, which also is reflected on the team. I think every team is a reflection of the leader, right? In a way, every team has a lot of the virtues, a lot of the defects that its leadership has, right? So I think it's not a coincidence that you're seeing the kind of results that you're seeing. If you take that approach to people in general, take that approach to people and your relationship first. Your relationship
yeah.
first. You're not appointment first. You're not, lead first, like timeline first. You're if you take an approach of being relationship first, you're gonna have a lot. You can always talk to people. You can always have conversation. You can always have a conversation. If
Right.
your immediate goal isn't the appointment, right? I don't care what kind of calls you're doing. For rent by owner, a circle prospect, expired, cancel, this doesn't really matter. If your approach is relationship first,
It doesn't
you
matter.
can always have a
Mhm.
valuable conversation with someone, right? And like you said, you're planting the seed, not of, here's my business card, call me when you're ready. Of I see you as a person. I see you. I
Mhm.
hear you, right? I see you and I hear you, which is what a lot of people just don't have in their lives sometimes, right? They just don't have that. I think a lot of people don't have that. And
Yep.
it's a very refreshing approach, right? If you can do it with authenticity, with sincerity, people really appreciate that, right? That they're not seen as a lead, as a number, as an address, as a commission check coming down the pipeline. I think it's a different way of doing things, right? And
Mhm.
in a society, in a market that really craves authenticity, right? Like you said, they don't want the polished, hard sell, a salesperson calling them on the phone, right? No one does,
Right.
actually, right?
Mhm.
If someone comes off a little bit of that sincerity, and relationship first, I can see why you're having success with that ISA team because you've transmitted that to them, right? That what matters is making the connection, right? And it doesn't always have to be an appointment, it doesn't always have to be a hot lead. You guys are in it to win it, right? With these people, because
Right.
if you're building relationships, you can always have a great conversation with someone, right?
I'll tell you something else that's actually come from that too, and this has been an unforeseen increase in my productivity. Um, so through conversations, they also learned that I'll give you a great example. In December, uh, ISA was having a conversation with a guy, and he says, I don't have a house here, but I got Florida I need to get rid of. And I have told them that, hey, don't I've got agents that I know all over the country that I can help anywhere, you know. And so he's like, hey, we know agents down there, but he would have never gotten to that piece of land without that conversation. And so now we just got our commission check from it last week,
Oh,
where
wow.
we were able to connect with an agent down in Florida. It was just outside of Orlando. They sold the piece of land, and boom, we're all getting paid.
Wow.
So
Love
we
that.
we help the person first, and then it connects us and gets what we're here for. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, if they stop paying us, we go do something else. But you know, uh, but that's another way to use your ISA through the conversations to find out, is there someone else that they know? They may have a grandmother in Idaho that, needs some help. Hey, I love referrals. You know, you get to help somebody, you get them with a good agent, and you just back off and wait for the commission to come over. So, I think that's one of the less seen and thought of things when we're talking to our ISAs and we're teaching them and things of that nature is, hey, I don't have to just do things here. I know agents in other places, and we can help anybody anywhere.
Yeah, 100%. It's having the attitude to help anyone anywhere, and the most important thing is that relationship, right? Are they even open to telling you that? Are they open to asking for help? Are they open to letting them know? Because they're showing you their cards. I have someone else that needs help. I've got something else here. They're not going to tell you that if they don't feel you're helpful, right? They're not going to reveal that. There's no reason to. They have no motivation to, right? Other than to get you off the phone if you sound like everybody else was trying to get in touch
Right.
with them,
And
right? 100%.
and if they think and without that conversation, they think that you're just nailed into them and their house and want them to sell their house. If they don't feel like you care about them, all they feel like is you just want to sell my house and get your big money. Because I mean, what it's out there? What do your average person think of agents? Well, we found that out during and the things that we dealt with in the last year. We found it out. I think we've all seen that for sale by owner that
Hates agents, right?
doing it. Yeah, hates agents. He's on social media and he's finding out that he's having a hard time selling it himself. But what's the first thing he said? I'm doing this because all the agents do is show properties and want their money. So when we're calling people, we've got to get past that, because that's what I tell people all the time, that attorneys are, and we're just barely here, and everybody else is up here because that's what think of us. And sometimes it's just, I mean, I think in every uh, everything people do, there's always somebody that is like that. And we're known by the worst of us, not by the best of us, because people will always, and I think it's that typical psychological thing where people always will remember the bad things you did, but not necessarily the good things you did. So there's so many people out there, that agents that didn't do their job and may have just shown houses, and me teaching new agents like I do sometimes, I see them come in. The first thing I do is say, first of all, how many people in here thought that they were just going to start showing properties? And you should see the hands that get raised. I said, if you don't pick this up, you're not going to be successful. If you can't call somebody on the phone, you're done. And then I give them the typical statistics. 85% of agents fail in the first 5 years. And the reason for that mostly is because they can't use this. They're too scared to make the phone calls. And so the ones that do get some success and know that, hey, this is my best way of reaching people, or one of the best ways to reach people, and they start getting ISAs, they forget about that. They forget about what they've done, and they say, well, these guys got the scripts, and they're kind of thrown to the wolves. And I just maybe you know, maybe it's the control freak in me, or it's the person who really wants to see these people do well. And again, when they do well, we do well. It's
100%.
simple.
So Wayne, I appreciate your time. I think we need to wrap this up, but I want to ask you one final question. If you're let's say you're speaking to other leaders of ISAs, other team leaders, other agents that desire to build a stronger culture, the desire to build a better culture. Where should they start? We've already laid out a really great roadmap here. You mentioned a lot of things, everything from the accountability piece, checking in, taking that a relationship first approach with them, being in communication with them. You guys are still doing role plays, checking in every day. We're talking about making sure they get paid on time. We're talking about, bringing those people with that raw skill set. We've mentioned a lot of things, but if you could tell people, people that already have ISAs right now, one thing they could do or where they should start, how would you answer that question?
So if you're a real estate team, bring them into your team meetings, make them a part, make them part of the team. If they're not part of the team, or sometimes we even say family, then they're going to be in an island of their own, and left to their own wares. The second thing is to make sure that they understand that them getting paid correctly and like clockwork is as important to you as it is to them.
100%.
And when they understand that, they I've seen the change. When they understand that them getting paid is as important as to me as it is to them, their attitude changes right away.
100%. I love that because I think it's that statement of treating them like they're a member of your team, like they're right there with you, right? Because a lot of things people will do to virtual, staff is I feel they'd never do that to someone in front of them. I really don't think so, right? So treating them as if they're right there with you, right? As every other member of your team, it goes such a long way. And that's a great starting point. It's a great one.
It's easy to be a keyboard warrior.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Agree. Awesome. Wayne, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. If people want to continue the conversation, get in touch with you, send you some referrals. What's the best way to reach you?
My email address is Wayne, WAYNE Upshaw, UPSHAW at B as in boy, HH, S as in Steve, Georgia spelled out.com, or my phone number is 678-517-0231. Call, text.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time. This has been a great conversation. There was a little bit of lag here and there. You guys have got some bad weather out in Atlanta, but I still appreciate you making the time and giving us sharing a lot of these nuggets. Such a great stuff. I'm going to make sure that everyone watches this. I'm going to recommend that our staff really recommend people check out this video because I think we went deep. Not just the topic of culture, topic of mindset, topic of being relationship first, and how that is displayed in a bunch of different ways. I hope everybody watches this and gets a great nugget. And you should here one last recommendation: you should rewatch this because we covered so many things on this video. I think every time you watch, you're going to pick up on something different, right? So I really recommend you folks check this out. So Wayne, thank you so much. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.